So apparently Donald Trump is really jealous of Mark Carney and effectively telling Canada, you can't make friends with someone else because I'm the only friend that you need. And let me show you guys what I'm talking about is Trump's really mad that China and Canada are getting closer. It says here from Trump, the last thing the world needs is to have China take over Canada. It's not going to happen or even come close to happening. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump, right? And basically now Trump is threatening Canada with 100% tariffs. You can see here, Trump threatens Canada with 100% tariffs if it, quote, makes a deal with China. And again, Trump is just jealous. Like, Trump's upset that he's blowing up his own, relationships with other countries, and Trump's upset that someone like Carney can go out and make relationships with other countries and build partnerships where Trump is destroying partnerships. Now you have to put this in context, right? Trump is jealous of Canada and Carney, and the U.S. is also struggling right now as there's like a bunch of people, over 1 million homes and businesses don't have power. This like breaking headline just a few minutes ago. It's a terrible situation, and at this moment, Trump's like, okay, we're going to just cut off our trading partners because I guess we don't need anything from other countries. I guess that's Trump's point of view here, which is pretty ridiculous, of course. Power outages cascade as big winter storm hits U.S. East Coast. And he also got flight cancellations, and it's just a really terrible storm. And if Trump and his people, if they cared about the, average person on the ground, they wouldn't spend all their time just like essentially terrorizing and harassing people and then shooting U.S. citizens, which we just talked about, and killing actually. And then, telling lies about stuff when we can even see what the truth is in videos. So, I mean, several videos on that topic talking about the Alex Pretty thing, but I just want to put this all in context of why it's so frustrating to talk about Trump. Again, he's destroying partnerships, destroying relationships with countries, and then getting mad when other countries don't want to do business with the USA necessarily anymore. For example, this is Trump insulting Carney here. If Governor Carney, right, that's an insult because we're talking about Prime Minister Carney. If Carney thinks he is going to make Canada a, quote, drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States, he is sorely mistaken. China will eat Canada alive. And it's kind of like, Canada, you have to have a relationship with me. And if you have a relationship with someone else, it's going to turn out bad for you. And they're going to eat you alive and blah, 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 right? It's like, I'm the only one that's good for you, that kind of thing. And basically, Trump is jealous of Canada. You can see in his language. China will eat Canada alive, completely devour it, including destruction of their businesses, social fabric, and general way of life. So I guess if you go out and make partnerships with other countries, your life's going to be ruined, according to Trump. If Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming in the USA. And then Trump's effectively saying, I guess we're not going to trade with Canada anymore, which is pretty stupid, of course, when you already have power problems in the USA. Again, 1 million home and businesses are out of power. And then there's a lot of things that Americans need from Canada. Plus, many industries are interconnected. So it just ruins everything. That's the most simplest way to put it. Canadians are pissed off at Trump for like suggesting that, Canada should be the 51st state or whatever. I mean, Trump just makes these incendiary things all the time, but really what it boils down to is Trump is upset that other people are moving on without the USA, and upset that other people are making friendships and partnerships and business relationships, right? This is actually from Carney, though. I want to cover what he says. It says, Canada has no intention of pursuing free trade with China, says Carney. And this is where it gets complicated because the basic gist of it is if you look at the US, Canada, and Mexico, they have a free trade agreement in place. And so the idea is that we're going to, create a strong trading bloc. We're going to integrate our many of our industries and companies. You build things across the border. So some parts may come from one place, come from another place, and then, but you're integrated the supply chain. That's a better way to say it. This is the phrase from Carney here. We have no intention of doing that with China, talking about free trade, or any other non-market economy. What we have done with China is to rectify some issues that developed in the last couple of years. And basically, this would be following the U.S., you could say, plan. So, for example, if USA says we're going to block Chinese cars and put, a bunch of tariffs on them and just essentially block them, then you're going to do it too. You have to follow us. And then Trump gets really upset if you, want to do your own path. So for example, this says right here, in 2024, Canada mirrored the US by putting a 100% tariff on electric vehicles from, China, from Beijing, and 25% on steel and aluminum. China had responded by imposing 100% import taxes on Canadian canola oil and meal, and 25% on pork and seafood, right? And so by essentially lowering barriers and not necessarily following the USA, then Canada then can now sell stuff to China, and China can sell stuff to Canada, right? Breaking with the U.S. this month during the visit to China, Carney cut Canada's 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles in return for lower tariffs on Canadian products. For me, that sounds like a fine deal. If that's what's going to help your people in Canada, you should do it. Now, this is where it gets touchy, though, is because the way that the thing is structured, you're supposed to notify your trading partners, right, with U.S. and Mexico what's going on. And I'll just read right here. It says, the Prime Minister said, talking about Carney, the Prime Minister said that under the free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, there were commitments not to pursue free trade agreements with non-market economies without prior notification. But this goes back to when Carney says then we're not trying to pursue a free trade agreement with China. We're just like, we're going to only trade some sectors, lower tariffs on some sectors, not necessarily just free all across the board. And then Trump goes off and threatens 100% tariffs, etc. Now we have Besant, who's out on the attack on Carney. So Trump's got his minions out attacking Canada, basically. So Trump's pretty upset about this, I guess. Besant then says, I don't think he's doing the best job for Canadian people. And that's Besant on Carney. If you want to watch Besant talk, you can. And Besant said a lot of whacked out stuff today, but that's who Besant does. That's what he says. He says, and we can't let Canada become an opening that the Chinese pour their cheap goods into the USA, right? And I just find it ridiculous when they say this stuff, because if you ask any American on the street, or I'll just tell you, go to Walmart, see where the stuff comes from, right? Go to the dollar store, see where the stuff comes from, right? Many of your products, be it your phones or whatever, see where the stuff comes from. And this is just we're all integrated these days. So this idea that, like, blaming Canada for building partnerships with China, even though the USA trades with China, like this kind of stuff just sounds ridiculous to me. And then he'll go on and on about Carney's, building his globalist friends in Davos, et cetera. And it's basically buzzwords for that kind of audience that is the Fox News audience and things. So there's that. Now, this is what it says. Canada won't back down on trade pivot as energy minister heads to India, right? So Canada's out building partnerships, right, with China, now India. And this is a quote from Canada. It's pretty interesting. It says here, we need to protect and empower the Canadian economy, and trade diversification is fundamental to that. That is why we went to China, and that is why we'll be going to India. And that is why we won't put all our eggs in one basket, which I think is a reasonable thing to do. Is don't necessarily rely on USA alone. You build out other partnerships and other trade deals with other countries, 100%. I mean, the US is just unreliable. And plus, just, matter of fact, if other, economies are growing and you have opportunity to sell Canadian goods around the world, and also to get goods that you need from other countries, do it. At the moment, this is Canada here. Canada's trade is still dominated by the USA. So you can get the idea that's exports and imports. Largely is USA, but then you got China, Japan, Korea, where I'm at, and also India. So, you can certainly strengthen your partnerships with other countries. I got no problem with that. And you can notify Canada. You can notify U.S. and Mexico on what's going on. I also want to address this because I know that people who have MAGA family or friends in your life, they'll say, oh, but you just hate Trump. Why do you just hate Trump all the time? And if Trump hates Canada, I hate Canada too. People just fall along. And this is actually an important story because oftentimes the MAGA people won't think about this stuff at all, and Fox won't talk about it ever, probably. Here's a headline. It says, Donald Trump begins 2026 with blitz of white-collar pardons, okay? So if you watch Fox News, the Trump people, they want you to focus on, look at the gardener out in your lawn. They're illegal. We got to get rid of them. Or look at the person who, puts the roof on your head. Oh, we got to get rid of them. Look at the people who works at the farm. Oh, we got to get rid of them, right? They get you focused on these kind of things. Right. And I just want you to think about, like, the white collar crime is really serious. What if someone just, for example, steals your retirement, for example, or what, for example, someone at an insurance company, screws you over to where you can't have a medical. It's just denied, right? You try to do a claim. Or what if in someone like screws the bank, just for example, and the bank loses billions of dollars, like really a lot of money. And then the bank has to make up for that loss by either getting subsidized by the taxpayers or by just raising fees for you, right? Any number of things. But don't sleep on the importance of white collar crime. It really, really matters. And I know they want you to focus on, just kind of, I just call it ground level crime or whatever, but or blue collar crime, I guess you could call it, but don't sleep on white collar crime. And then Trump's whole thing is just giving pardons out. And when you read through it, it's actually accelerated from last year even. It says Donald Trump has pardoned or reduced the sentences of 10 people convicted of fraud and other white collar crimes since January 15th. It's like a lot already. Almost a quarter of the number of similar reprieves issued in the whole of 2025. So I guess he's accelerating this thing. And it mentioned that, I guess one's a donor to his campaign, of course, right? The tally, which includes the father of a donor to Trump's MAGA Inc. campaign group and a person convicted of being granted clemency during Trump's first term, right? And some of these things are fraud, some are drug related. And it's just like, it becomes obvious how hypocritical the Trump people are. And then when you talk about like, okay, so why are you doing said things? Listen to their description of it. This is a personal insight. It says, a person with knowledge of the process said, what's different about the pardon process with Trump is you can make a direct appeal. Find the best platform and talk as loudly as possible because he's actually listening to people instead of following the bureaucratic processes. So if you can convince Trump on whatever, podcast and that you deserve to be pardoned and such, Trump will listen, right? And then listen to this. Trump loves being merciful, giving people second chances. Most of the time, what he wants in return is tell people how great I am. And also, donate to the campaign, etc. Right? I mean, it's obvious there. It's you read this stuff. It's like it's spelled out for you so obviously, but they just don't mention the Fox News things or mention the importance of white collar crime. Let me give you an example. This goes to relationship with Canada, goes to the power outages that we're just talking about that are facing people right now. So at the moment, AI and data centers are getting a lot of backlash, right? So what are the data center people doing? They want to lobby more. That's their plan. Data center groups plan lobbying blitz to counter AI energy backlash. So basically they want to spend a bunch of money to try to convince you that data centers are good, et cetera, or at least get politicians, even if you don't care, or even if you don't like data centers, just get politicians to push it anyway. So this is what it says. It says some of the largest data center operators in the U.S. are planning to go on the offensive lobbying blitz this year as the sector rushes to stem public backlash against the vast projects underpinning the AI boom. And one thing I thought was interesting, this was a quote here. It says, we stand on the foundation that we're doing the right thing in these communities, right? And it comes from someone who is a Blackstone-owned data center operator. And I mentioned Blackstone before because if you remember in Davos, there are a lot of private meetings behind closed doors, basically choosing who the Fed's going to be, right? And then Trump goes along with it. And you can see who's in control, and it's a BlackRock exec. I think he's the, I want to say CI is like the chief investment officer of fixed income, something like that. And it's just kind of obvious what's going on here. Like the big money, runs the show. And right now at the moment, all the investment is data center and such. That's what everyone's talking about. And one of the things that they said recently was, I'll read it as a quote. It says, if we're going to spend tens of billions of dollars this year on capital projects, so building out the data centers, right, we should probably spend tens of millions of dollars on messaging. So they're going to hit the lobbying boom and try to get more and more data centers going through. And also I want to mention what's going on in China, because this story is actually a really big story. I know there's a lot going on and it's hard to keep track of everything, but we got some more information about Xi. I don't think they've removed him yet, but at least it says accused, one of the top generals over there. It says, this is crazy, China's top general accused of giving nuclear secrets to the U.S. Now, whether or not that's true, who knows? I really have no idea on the truthfulness of this stuff. I'm not saying it's untrue or true. It just, you never know with these kind of things. And because that's a pretty crazy accusation. One of the top, generals in China just giving nuclear secrets to the U.S. That's crazy. It could be true, could not be true. I really don't know. I'll just read it. It says, China's senior most general is accused of leaking information about the country's nuclear weapons program to the U.S. and accepting bribes for official acts, including the promotion of officer to defense minister, said the people with high-level briefing of the allegation. So it totally could be true. I really don't know. And one of the things is it shows a consolidation of power by Xi. Now, you could read this one or two different ways. So in one way, you could read it that Xi just wants to clean up corruption. So you could certainly read it that way. Another way you could read it is that Xi wants to make sure that the military, is ready to take Taiwan and, remove anyone who's not doing that in the most, I would sort of say streamlined way or efficient way. This, though, I guess at least according to this, when you're going after people who have experience and like most senior, it's actually weakening your position. One way you could look at it. Another thing is, I guess this guy's a personal friend. At least that's what it says here. I'll read it. It says the downfall of Zhang and Liu expands Xi's year-long push to clear out officers deemed corrupt and politically unreliable. The purging of one Xi's of personal friend Zhang. So I think they're referring to the one here. I mean, there's a lot going on with this, and then also they are saying effectively that the Zhang is also accused of forming political cliques, like little groups. That's certainly a thing that happens in any country where you start building alliances, etc. We do know that Xi that wants to consolidate power, but there's also been rumors out there about Xi's health, just like Trump's health. So you never know with this stuff. I am bringing this up though because it is worth mentioning. It is a major story, and we'll see what happens with that. And then it also relates to Xi is opening up the China country. So if you want to take it the Xi in the positive route, you'd say Xi's trying to root out corruption and build partnerships with Korea or Canada or whatever. If you want to take the more negative route, you'd say, and Xi's totally a dictator. He's accusing lots of people lots of things. He's trying to purge anyone who's not loyal to him, and he also locks away dissidents. Both things could be true at the same time. It's no easy thing. And also I want to point out really clearly, because sometimes people ask me about China stuff that you'll see on YouTube. I want to see this really clearly. YouTube actually had a really big problem earlier this year, and they actually got rid of some channels because some of the channels you'll see on YouTube are sponsored by the Chinese government. I just want to make that clear. And you'll know, well, maybe you won't know what you see. I'll just say this. If they use a lot of Chinese language in their videos, or if they're based in China, there's a high chance that they have connections to the Chinese government, and just doing whatever they said. Because the reason why it becomes a problem on YouTube is that if you are sponsored by a government, like you have to publicly say sponsored by the government. So it's because you could theoretically have a channel sponsored by whatever government, not just Chinese government. Like this, say you're sponsored by, and it doesn't matter. Like let's say you're a legitimate news source and you are, you get funding from the government, because lots of public channels out there exist in multiple countries around the world. You still have to state that you're getting funding from the government. So you're in this, wild space on the internet though, where it's like China's been really aggressive at the same way that Russia has also. It's just the reality of getting like whatever influencer people out there to push the party line. So some people I'll just be frank with you guys, if you're still watching this video, some people out there are just frankly racist, and they see me being an Asian person and they want to assume I'm Chinese, which I'm not. I'm Vietnamese, right? I live in Korea. I'm an American citizen. So there's that. And then the other one, they'll say just because someone's Asian, they have to push the party line of China, which is ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. But, if you're watching this part of the video, you're probably watched the channel, you're not a racist person, and you can understand an honest conversation about these things. But I just want to just state very clearly, just be careful out there on YouTube channels out there that talk about China, because there are many out there that are definitely sponsored by the Chinese government. It's a real thing that's happening. And you also know too, if they ever get invitations to access to government events or whatever, stuff like that. And it's a complicated issue, and I don't want to ever give the impression that I hate China or hate Chinese people. In fact, if you ever get a chance to visit China, do. It's a fantastic place to visit. The people are really, really friendly, and there's a lot of stuff going on over there. And it's just any of these issues, be it Canada or China or USA or whatever, when you talk about other countries, you've never been to said places, sometimes they feel like they're not real. And I'll just tell you, people are people all over, and you can make friends with people, wherever, and governments is completely separate from regular people, and most regular people in most countries, they don't have anything to do with the government. They just want to live their lives, raise their kids, send them to school, have a good job or whatever. It's very different when you actually go there. It's really different. So that's all I have to say about that. And I enjoyed spending time with you guys, and do be careful out there. And I'll catch you all in the next video.